covering today's top boxing news.
Talk about what Shelly Finkle said.
I don't want to talk about Shelly Finkle. I want to talk about Wilder.
Oh, come on, man. You've got to address it. Bro. They're saying they don't want to fight Anthony Joshua until 2020.
So fucking what? You think that's a recent development? You think Wilder and Shelly Finkle stalling the fight is some kind of new fucking news? I've been saying that's what they were doing since April of 2018. That's not fucking news.
I know, bro. But now we've got it in writing, bro. Yeah, bro. We've got it in writing, bro.
So fucking what if we've got it in writing? If you needed to get it in writing that these guys are stalling, that these guys are biding their time to build Wilder's bum-ass profile, which should have been built already because he's been around for like 11 years and he got 40-something fights. If you needed to get it in writing to see that this guy's stalling, then you're a fucking idiot.
Julius, you gotta calm down now. We gotta address this now.
I've already been addressing this shit for a year. Don't y'all motherfuckers realize that this is what they want? They want us talking about the fight to help build Wilder's bum-ass profile. They want to feed off the energy from the fight itself to raise his profile, all while avoiding the fight. All while stalling. That's what the fuck they want. So the more that I address this shit, the more that bum-ass Wilder and his bum-ass team of con men get what they want. I don't want to help them motherfuckers. Yeah?
Be reasonable.
How fucking reasonable is it to keep highlighting the same shit in repetition when whoever doesn't know, at this point, whoever doesn't know that they're stalling is likely someone that doesn't want to know. They offered this guy $20 million fucking dollars to fight the same guy that he's about to fight anyway, and that would have went into an Anthony Joshua fight. 2 fights. So if somebody out there still doesn't know, it's because they dumbass don't want to know. Let's keep this as concise as possible. Deontay Wilder and his team have been stalling from the fucking get-go. From the fucking get-go. Well, you got people out there right now saying that it's okay for him to ask for 50% because he raised his profile with the Tyson Fury fight. Guess what? He was asking for 50% before he even fought fucking Tyson Fury. So what was the excuse then? Well, this guy said that he wasn't going to sign a contract that didn't have a date and didn't have a venue. He turned around and signed a contract that didn't have a date and didn't have a venue when it came to Tyson Fury. When it was Joshua, he couldn't sign one. But when it was Fury, he could. What is there and who is there left to address? What, the clowns on YouTube that support Deontay Wilder no matter what he does, no matter what he says, no matter how many times him and his team contradict themselves? What, we gonna spend more time on those fucking idiots? They're gonna support Wilder no matter what he does. If he were to say, I'm not fighting Anthony Joshua until 2024, they'd get behind that shit, believe me, they would. Because they look at him as something more than a boxer. They look at him as their big brother, or their daddy, or their role model. Some weak beta male shit. That's how they look at him. That's why they support him so much. So, even if they did, even if we could sit here and prove to every single one of those hypocrites when and where they contradicted themselves, it don't matter because those spineless motherfuckers don't stand for nothing anyway. That's like going up to a fucking cockroach and saying, hey, you're a fucking cockroach, you insect. That shit ain't gonna bother them because they ain't got no shame. If at any point between now and the following year, you bump into somebody and they're telling you that Anthony Joshua is ducking Deontay Wilder, this would have to be a person that's already ignoring that Deontay Wilder turned down $100 million. That Deontay Wilder's own manager, who manages Deontay Wilder's career, let it be known to the public. They don't got no intention of fighting Anthony Joshua this year. That fight is more likely to happen next year. If you bump into somebody that's saying Joshua's ducking Wilder, this would have to be someone so ignorant, so stupid, so unreasonable that they cannot be reasoned with because the information, the proof, the evidence, it's all there. This motherfucker turned down $100 million to fight who? To do what? So you telling me that the battle plan is for Deontay Wilder to keep busy with PBC's string of heavyweights. And who are those guys? Luis Ortiz, who you beat already. What, Adam Kalnacki after that. So you turned down, let me get it right. You turned down $100 million, basically. You turned down $100 million to fight Luis Ortiz again? On what, pay-per-view? Who the fuck you think gonna buy that fight? They saw it already on Showtime. They seen it already. So what, you think you gonna charge motherfuckers $75 now for a fight that they fucking saw already? Is that why you turned down that money to fight Joshua? Or is it to fight Adam Kalnacki? Because as we all know, Wilder versus Kalnacki is a much bigger fight than Wilder versus Joshua, right? That's the motherfucking fight that we all been waiting to see. Oh, I know. You want to try your luck at a Tyson Fury rematch, right? because you guys and the top rank guys, you guys have a beautiful relationship. That's very likely to happen. I mean, seriously, these would have to be the options that Wilder walked away from $100 million for. These would have to be the options. It would have to be these options. These are the alternatives. Now, if you can't read between the lines, if you're too fucking dense to read between the lines and see that ain't not one of them motherfucking fights worth the same money as a Joshua fight, they're not. Not one of them fights is worth the same money. None of them guys got the other 3 belts in the weight class. So if Wilder walked away from that Anthony Joshua fight, from that $100 million, it's because he's fucking stalling. He's still looking to build his bum-ass profile because he don't got the kind of profile to where you could demand what you're demanding.
And get it.
If they weren't trying to build his bum-ass profile, then why the fuck would they plan on keeping busy with those guys? What, people want to see a Ortiz rematch more than they want to see a Joshua fight? People want to see him fight Kaunaki more than they want to see a Joshua fight? Or people asking for a Fury rematch more than they're asking for a Joshua fight? We all know the answer to those questions, so if you engage in an argument with anybody stupid enough to make it that Joshua is ducking Wilder, you, my friend, are wasting your own fucking time, mingling with idiots. I didn't need Shelly Finkle to make these statements to already know, to already make the inference, to already make the deduction that these guys are stalling. I've been saying that shit for a year already. Are you motherfuckers just now catching wind? Are you now just understanding that these guys are stalling because the work wasn't done before to put Wilder in a power position today? So all they can do now is hope that the energy around the fight is enough to raise Wilder's profile with the American market. And that's why they plan on keeping busy with all these other motherfuckers. And the worst part is, in doing so, they jeopardize the fight. In doing so, they jeopardize the fight in more ways than one. What if Wilder loses to Brazil? What if Joshua loses to Ruiz? Or what if they make it past those guys, but they lose to the next guy after that? We know that Usyk is lining himself up as a mandatory for Anthony Joshua. What if Usyk does the unthinkable and beats Anthony Joshua? What if he beats Wilder to the punch and unseats that guy and takes his 3 belts? What happens to the fight then? These guys are so determined
To avoid the risk.
to put distance between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. They're so determined to put distance between him and that fight that they're willing to jeopardize it not happening. Because this is boxing, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of shit could happen in between now and 2020 that could fuck up that fight. But they're willing to run those risks more than they're willing to run risks with Anthony Joshua here in the ring this year. They'll risk the fight being fucked up. They'll risk that, you know, they don't got no problem risking the fight itself. They don't got no problem risking that. But if it comes to risking it all against Anthony Joshua today, oh yeah, they got a problem with that. And that's why they're putting distance between Wilder and Joshua. I mean, what further explanation is required? You got Wilder's own manager right here saying it. What they plan on doing for the rest of the year. And not a single one of them fights is the size and the scale of a Joshua fight, but that's what they plan on doing anyway.
Why?
Why, you ask? Because they need more time. They need more time to build Wilder's bum-ass profile. They need more time to keep feeding off the energy of the fight. That way, if and when they do fight Anthony Joshua and Wilder loses, well, he will have made a substantial amount of money in spite of losing. Because if they had taken the fight in 2018 and he would have lost, it would have been for a lot less money than what they stand to make today and what they stand to make in 2020. They're just stalling for more money. That's all they've been doing, and that's what they're gonna keep doing. So if you're so fucking mad, or if you were one of those guys that was mad, because all of a sudden they're not, but if you're one of those guys that was mad that they didn't fight last year, or that they didn't fight at the beginning of this year, you know who you can blame. The proof is there. The proof is there. There's only so many fucking times it can be pulled up and put in your fucking face who's holding up this fight. That if Wilder asked for 50% last year, before he even fought Tyson Fury, if he was asking for 50%, it's because he knew he wouldn't get it. He knew they wouldn't give it to him. Not at that point in the juncture. He was just using that as a reason to walk away from the fight. Walk away, buy his time, build his profile, so that when they come back, it'll be worth more money. It's really not fucking complicated.
Not when you put it that
But
way.
I'll tell you what, I'll go as far as saying that that's not a fight they're crazy about, because they're willing to risk the fight not happening. They're willing to risk someone losing while they stall instead of just striking while the iron is hot. If you believed you could beat that man today, you'd be fighting that man today. Lord knows it'll be the biggest payday you ever had. Of course the fight would be bigger a year from now, and 2 years from now, and 3 years from now. Of course it would be bigger. But are you willing to risk the fight itself for that duration of time? Because if you are, it's because you don't want to gamble. You don't want to take that chance. If you're willing to wait that fucking long in this sport where anything can happen, it's because you don't really want that fight.
You don't want it?
Because if you felt like, I'm better than him today, I can beat him today, you're only getting older and your arm's only getting more worse and worse and worse. What was it, 7 surgeries? If you feel you better than that man today, then you'd be fighting that man today. But what do we see? He not fighting that man today, is he?
Nope.
No. And is he gonna fight him sometime this year?
Nope.
Not according to his manager. So there you have it. How much time and attention gets spent day to day talking about a fighter that so obviously doesn't want to fight? How much time gets wasted day to day by authors on YouTube discussing this guy that very clearly don't want this fight?
At this point in time, it ain't even about the belts no more, baby. It ain't as I said, I'm the most talked about, I'm the hottest fighter in the world right now, and I got 1 belt. And I got 1 belt that means more than any other belts. That's that green belt, that WBC belt, the most precious, the most beautiful belt in all of boxing. You know, every champion had this belt. So I don't need no other thing.
You ask me, he don't deserve the attention. He don't deserve the attention because there are other people out there that when they say they want to fight, they mean it. They actually take steps. There are other people out there that when they say they want it, they go after it. People like Chantel Cameron. Let's talk about her. On June 28th at the York Hall in London, Chantel Cameron is going to be squaring off against Anisha Basheel in a WBC final eliminator for a mandatory challenger spot
Against the winner of...
towards facing the winner of Katie Taylor versus Delphine Persoon. If Chantel Cameron emerges victorious in that WBC final eliminator, the winner of Katie Taylor versus Delphine Persoon is going to have to answer to her thereafter. Now you hypothesize, you put your thinking cap on. Let's say that the winner of the fight is Katie Taylor, and she effectively becomes the undisputed lightweight champion.
Okay.
That would then mean that Chantel Cameron would have a legal claim towards one of her belts, and Katie would owe her a title shot. A situation like that could potentially put an Amanda Serrano fight on the back burner. Why? Amanda ain't got no belts in the lightweight division, and Amanda's not a mandatory challenger for any of Katie's belts.
Not a single one.
All that moving up and down in weight she's been doing, you would have thought she found the time to become a mandatory for one of Katie's belts, but that's not the case. Whatever. Now, I will say that I question whether or not Amanda Serrano really wants that fight, because how she's been moving as of late doesn't really communicate that. But whether it does or doesn't is besides the point, because at this time,
Here and now,
if Chantel Cameron beats Anisha, and she becomes the WBC's mandatory challenger to that WBC title, and if Katie wins that WBC title from Delphine Persoon, the way it might happen is we end up with Cameron versus Taylor before Serrano versus Taylor, and there wouldn't be very many ways around that, because 1, Amanda's not a mandatory challenger for any belts that Katie has right now, and 2, she's not a champion in that weight class, so a fight between her and Katie Taylor, it wouldn't even be a unification fight. It wouldn't be a unification fight that you could use to trump a mandatory, provided that Chantel secures that mandatory spot. Essentially, the way it breaks down is we might end up seeing Taylor versus Cameron before Taylor versus Serrano. And since Serrano really isn't showing a lot of enthusiasm towards having that fight, she really ain't making no moves towards that fight, to be honest. It's looking like we might end up seeing Taylor versus Cameron in the near future. Now that's provided that hinges on both Katie Taylor winning her fight and Chantel Cameron winning her fight. But if you've ever seen both of those girls in action, you know
ain't nothing to fuck
that
with.
they're 2 of the best the whole division has to offer. So it's conceivable that Chantel's gonna get that spot, and it's conceivable that Katie Taylor's gonna win that green belt. And when she does, what we could see thereafter is Katie Taylor versus Chantel Cameron for the undisputed lightweight championship. Now we'll talk more about Chantel's fight as the fight date approaches. Moving on. Very recently, ahead of this upcoming fight between Canelo Alvarez and Daniel Jacobs, Oscar De La Hoya was quoted as saying that pay-per-view is no longer alive because of DAZN. He made it a point to highlight how in previous eras of boxing, big fights were more accessible to the public at large because they were made available through networks like NBC and CBS, and pay-per-view rolled around and changed all of that. And he talked about yesteryear, how in previous eras of boxing, pay-per-view prices was something to the tune of $30 or $40, whereas in today's day and age, they're somewhere in the realm of $100. And that as a result of that, given where boxing is going, how
Things are changing.
the way people view boxing is changing.
Little by little.
Pay-per-view is not alive today as a result of that. The question is there any truth to what Oscar De La Hoya is saying? Because you gotta bear in mind, Oscar De La Hoya is in bed with DAZN, so of course you're gonna feel inclined to say something like that. But we the listeners, we the boxing community, we are tasked with evaluating whether or not there's any truth to what he's saying, because he's partial, because he's invested in DAZN. Of course you're gonna talk up the same streaming app that you're doing business with. We can't believe it coming from you. We have to make our own independent evaluation and assess whether or not there's any truth to what he's saying. And even though I'm not one for agreeing with things that Oscar De La Hoya says, in this instant, he is 100% right. You may be thinking to yourself, what about the success that they had with Spence versus Mikey Garcia? The success that they had with Wilder versus Fury? And the success that they had, if it was a success, because who really knows? The success that they maybe had with Pacquiao versus Broner. How could pay-per-view be dead and those fights are pulling in what they're pulling in? Well, they're not pulling in very much, you understand. I mean, those pay-per-views, in all honesty, while they're not complete flops, those are nominal successes. Nominal.
Not major.
It is becoming increasingly difficult in the American market to crack 1 million pay-per-view buys. And your run-of-the-mill fight,
Ain't gonna cut it.
it's not gonna do it. It would have to be a fight that there is a genuine and palpable demand for. A unique set of circumstances involving the best of the best kind of fighters to create the demand that would drive those numbers up to 1 million buys. Because you can try to sell just about any fucking fight as a quote-unquote pay-per-view event.
You can try
but the
it.
truth of it is going to show up in the numbers. And in today's pay-per-view market, very mediocre pay-per-view market, you see guys celebrating numbers like 325,000 buys for Wilder versus Fury as if that's some kind of big deal. When if you ask Canelo Alvarez, those are the lowest numbers that he's ever put up. The lowest. But in today's market, that's supposed to be some kind of a success. I guess that the mediocrity of today's pay-per-view market makes people celebrate having not flopped. Just the act of not flopping is cause for celebration. But if it's that fucking hard, then why put it on in the first place? Why not go with the flow and go in the direction of progress? You understand? I mean, if Oscar De La Hoya is saying that the pay-per-view market in America is on its last legs, then yeah, he's onto something. I mean, I dare say that, yeah, he's right. Because if you're gonna ask the average guy to pay $75 or close to $100 to see a fight, it better be a damn good fight, because after they done spent their money, if they're not satisfied with what they saw, odds are the next time, they ain't gonna wanna give you their money.